Howdy, 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 and welcome to this episode of the Lone Star Halo podcast. My name's Fernando, the Lone Star Halo, joined here by the Foxy Man, Mr. Todd Fox. We're going to talk about the Angels, how that Orioles series was. Has it really changed the course of the season, even though it was only 3 games? And we're going to talk about the All-Star game jerseys and hats. Are they Foxy or are they not? Todd, hit the music.
One, two, three, go! Oh, 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 oh. From Texas to Anaheim, we're bringing the heat. Don and Fernando got the news every week. Walk-off strikeouts, who's making a name? Who's in the clutch and who's taking the blame? Lone Star Halo, fucking baseball, here we go. Big hats, bad calls, who's gonna rise and who's gonna fall?
Hey, welcome in, everybody. It is the Lone Star Halo podcast with your hosts, Todd Fox and the Lone Star Fernando there. Dude, a lot going on in Angels land here as last time we talked, it's been a couple weeks. The Angels are doing much better, but now we find ourselves 4 games under 500 right now. Currently, we're in the Bronx right now, 0-0 at the end of 4. Fernando, how you feeling, man?
Man, how times change in about a week. I was on record saying that from the time that we've done the podcast, right? This is year 4. You know, certainly not a credentialed journalist in those 4 years, but I digress. This is year 4, and what I will say is, before the Orioles series, that was probably like the best month of Angels baseball we've seen really in that 4-year stretch. The offense was good. This team is very, very good when they score over 4 runs. Their offense, when they are on, they are on. The pitching follows. The bullpen tends to be lights out when the offense shows up. But, man, those games where it's like 2 runs, 3 runs, those are the games that the pitching just does not step up for whatever reason. The bullpen can't hold the games late to get to Kenley Jansen on the back end, or, the starters just come out and just have bad outings. But I will say part of me is kind of happy that we did get swept by the Orioles. And obviously I don't want this team to lose, right? There's a lot of people who think we're too negative. And for anyone who says that, we have about a month worth of podcasts and a lot of post-game shows that are positive. So we are capable of being positive. We are hungry for a winning organization. Unfortunately, there's contenders and there's pretenders. And we kind of always knew that the Angels were pretenders. We were hoping that they were going to be competitive going into August, the dog days of August, and maybe even September for the first couple games, just so these young guys can play some meaningful games. And as of right now, the last, 5 games hasn't been very competitive. Is it still early? Yes. Are they still technically in the hunt? Yes. That's what I meant by early. I'm not Roger Lodge. Hey, there's a lot of baseball left to be played, Todd. The season starts tonight. No, the season started months ago. But what I mean is it's still early enough for them to still play competitive ball games, because that's what it was all about this year. Can this team take a step forward? As of right now, there has definitely been peaks where this team has taken 10 steps forward. But man, oh man, Todd, has there been valleys where this team is 25 steps behind?
Yeah, that's the frustrating thing. I think for me, I take out of it watching this team on a nightly basis three things. I think there's three things that are wrong with it. Number one, they just flat out can't get out of their own way at times. They make mistakes where this team's not good enough to get over those mistakes and punches in the guts, and they lose out of that. And then I think their failure to adjust. They don't adjust in game situations where a pitcher seems to be throwing the same sweeper, same slider, or same inside pitch, and they just they continue with the same non-effective agenda, and they keep pushing it, and they refuse to switch things up. And then my third thing is mismanagement. Totally here. I'm now leaning heavily towards firing the entire staff because, whether it's coming from the analytics or not, fire them too. You literally have it mind boggles you on the nightly basis on why are we putting this pitcher in when he's not that type of pitcher? Why are we taking out a guy who's literally been raking to bench him for somebody else? It literally makes no sense what this team does on a nightly basis. So those three things are hurting a team that we've talked about, before, like, hey man, this team can be a fringe wild card team, or at least, like you said, be competitive in August and September.
Yeah, so hopefully this team is still, and obviously they are literally, but hopefully this team is still capable of playing good, meaningful ball games down the stretch, because that's really what we need for these young guys. But the biggest thing is the fact that the Angels lost the series to the Orioles, who are a struggling team. This isn't the Orioles of 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah, maybe the bones of them are. But that's a team that dealt with a lot of injuries. That's a team that was sputtering. And the Angels, for really the greater part of the last decade, have kind of been that team that, man, when you are struggling and you are just kind of spinning your wheels, and when you see the Angels on that schedule, you probably lick your lips a little bit, if you're on the other team. No Diddy.
Yeah, that's a problem too, man, because they have literally the worst pitching staff of all of baseball. Like, we rival them with some stats, but the Orioles overall are the worst team. And again, they shut us down. I was talking about it in the post game last night. 16 runs the Angels scored in 6 games against Baltimore. So it's not like, hey, it's an Anaheim thing, or hey, it's a Baltimore thing. No, they scored 16 runs against a team with a team ERA close to 6. So that right there is extremely frustrating. And then to top it off, looking at most of the starts in those 6 games were fairly good enough performances to win. And the bullpen in all 6 games was fair, with the exception of the last game, was fairly lights out. So it's another one where it has you scratching your head, where if they just did things a little bit differently hitting wise and went back to some of their good traits, like you said, in a week or two ago when they had that 8-game winning streak, I think they'd have a different result. But for some reason, their mentality, Fernando, is if it ain't broke, we'll try to fix it.
Yeah. Well, some pages think that it's because of the launch angle. So
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. That's what you've been saying forever. Praising the launch angle a little too much. Yeah, I don't really know what the solution is. I mean, obviously me being a member of Hitty, and we're so negative all the time, and because we're not bootlicking housemen.
Nope.
I'm very much like, man, maybe they do need to shake things up, but it's also, I mean, what's the point? I definitely don't think that Ron Washington is the guy. With all due respect to James, I know James really, really wanted Ron Washington a couple years ago. I, just like everyone else, was excited when we got Ron Washington. But, man, I don't know where to go from here. We all wanted Mike Scioscia gone when in 2018 after that season.
Mm-hmm.
The game had passed him by. I love Mike Scioscia. To this day, I love Mike Scioscia. Man, if I saw the guy in the middle, of the mall or something, it'd be like, Mike, give me a hug, Mike. You know what I mean? He'd probably call security or whatever, but I'd be like, oh, give me a hug, buddy. He looks like your neighborhood hope dealer. You know what I mean? Just look like he's out there for the vibes. But after that, we got Broad Ausmus, and boy, oh boy, did that kind of blow up in the Angels' face, right? I mean, and I don't know how much of that you can blame on Brad Ausmus. Let's not forget that in 2019, Artie Moreno and company was either directly or not directly. I mean, right? It's all still up in the air. There's legal cases. The team, the organization dealt with the loss of Tyler Skaggs. Tyler Skaggs was a significant portion of the starting rotation, right? He wasn't just a guy. He was one of the main veterans at that time of this starting rotation. So with that being said, that was such a big piece of the puzzle that was missing. But, even if this guy was just a role player, I mean, obviously, this is a human life no matter what. But my point is, like, Tyler Skaggs was a big piece of the team, right? But even if it was just a journeyman type of guy, that's always tough for an organization, right? You're traveling with the guy, you're seeing him all the time. Next thing you know, they're not there anymore, right? So Brad Ausmus and company had to deal with that. So how much of that was because of Brad Ausmus? How much of that was because of the tragedy that was losing Tyler Skaggs? We'll never truly know. Maybe if we have Ty on it again in the future, maybe that's a question we can ask him. After that, they hired Joe Madden. We were all excited for Joe Madden, right? We thought Joe Madden was the perfect blending of worlds. Man, this guy wins everywhere he goes. He won in Tampa Bay. He won in Chicago. Didn't win here. Not even close. Didn't even flirt with winning here. And then, of course, we had Phil Nevin, your boy. And then we've had Ron Washington since. I think we'd be naive, Todd, to think that a manager is really going to change anything just because the front office is what they are and they're going to continue to be what they are. But Ron Washington's definitely not the answer. That much I can tell you.
Yeah, to go back to Sosha, dude, I miss the days of him calling every pitch. I used to get annoyed at the tail end, but, now looking back at it, to give what he had and to also be the type of dude that would, literally, call every pitch, call every play, would mix it up and be like, okay, it's the sixth inning right here. We're down a run or two. Let's have Ibar bunt. Let's catch him off guard. The third baseman's playing the shift or he's shading towards second base. Stuff like that these guys don't even think of or can't do. And I think for me to be more, because we're already invested, let's just face it, but for us to be fully in and say, hey, you know what? Things might change. I think next year would be, firing of the staff, and then you bring in people, and then you also see in the tea leaves, hey, the Angels got rid of the analytics department. They fired that guy, or they fired this guy. And if they do a complete clean house, there's hope. There's a chance, because like you said, they could bring in another manager and he could be fiery, or he could be a player's coach and he could come in here. But in the end, if you're still going to have the same assholes that are up there calling the shots, you're never going to change the mentality on the field, no matter who you have there. And I think that's the realization that I've come to now. I know you probably saw it earlier, but I was under the impression that just Nevin was overwhelmed. And I thought, really, Ron Washington, we're going to see if he's really got the keys to the car. And the answer is no. He still doesn't. He's got a learner's permit, still riding shotgun as the analytics department, watching his every move. He doesn't have free reign of the car.
Yeah, I've been on record saying multiple times, like, I didn't necessarily think that Phil Nevin was the problem. I mean, we've always said, every Angels fan will tell you, any Angels fan who's watching at least, will tell you that, it's always been upper ownership, right? John Carpino, Artie Moreno, the guys pulling the strings, truly. They're the ones to blame. I mean, I don't really even think it was Billy Epler's fault. I don't really necessarily think it's Perry Manassian's fault, right? These guys are just kind of doing what they're told. And, it really does stem from the very, very top. But, we're not saying anything new with that. It's frustrating. But once again, I mean, Perry has the opportunity to just do it right, right? This trade deadline could really, really help set this franchise up to be much better in the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, they've got to part ways with a lot of soon-to-be free agents and veterans on this club. There's so many pieces. I mean, again, if you're going to trade Tyler Anderson for, a mid-level prospect, and a bench player, fine. Or if you can just get a mid-level prospect, fine. I'm good with that. Like we're not going to get 6 players like for an Ohtani. We don't have that type of player. But if you can get a 1-for-1, a 2-for-1, let's do it. Let's just do it and see how it beefs up the minor league system. Let's make it competitive for next year when spring training rolls around. Is Rada going to make that next move? Are some of these other players going to make the next move to be on the major league roster? Can we fill the holes in if we don't have it in the minor league system yet through free agency? I'm willing to do that, but you got to shed weight. You got to go with getting rid of players who are going to get you the best return, if any. Which, if Renifo gets hot, he's one. Taylor Ward's another one. Jansen's another one. Anderson's another one. You can go down the list. There's about 6 or 7 players that can get you a return, and whatever you get, just bank it, man. And then with this draft being as critical as it is, nail those at least first to 5 or 10 picks, man. You got to nail those, dude. You got to do your research. You got to understand, okay, what does he like to eat for breakfast? Like is he a religious guy? Is he not? Get to know the players. Just don't be like, hey, he's best on the board. And let's just find out and see if they fit what you're trying to do here. And if that's the case, man, not only, they have to fit personality wise and talent wise to what you need, in my beliefs. And if you can do that, man, the Angels can have one really good off season after a losing season, which they haven't had.
Yeah. The thing people always talk about as well, at least Perry's good at drafting. And I mean, I've we've both really kind of debunked that. I mean, Zach Neto, great pick. Absolutely. So far, arguably the best player of his draft class.
Shawnuel.
Yeah. I mean, Shanuel's been a above average first baseman. Maybe he's starting to get a little bit better defensively. His offense has always kind of been his thing, right? His contact. He's starting to actually hit the ball off the wall a little bit. I don't necessarily ever want him to be a home run hitter because I don't.
Real quick, Fernando. I'm sorry to interrupt, but on last night's show, James brought up a comparison, and I want you to agree or disagree because I agreed with him. Eric Hosmer, Shawnuel, same player or not?
Ooh, wow. I've never thought about him like that. I think Eric Hosmer is going to have more power than Nolan Shanuel when it's all said and done. But it's not a terrible comparison. Eric Hosmer was never really a defensive liability, but he certainly wasn't a plus defender by any stretch of the imagination.
Correct. And not very speedy either.
Yeah, certainly not very speedy. But Nolan Shanuel doesn't necessarily need to be speedy. I mean, I'd be more scared if you have a speedy first baseman.
Yeah.
I can't think of a speedy first baseman. I'm like, anyone help me out here? Some people are probably saying, oh, well, Bryce Harper. Okay, but he wasn't really a first baseman by nature. He is now, but point is there's not too many speedy first basemen. The contact compared to Eric Hosmer, yeah, I could see that. But yeah, I think Hosmer had a little bit more power because Hosmer was like a 25-30 home run type of guy. I think Nolan Shanuel was like a 12 to 15 home runs a year type of guy.
Yeah, he was peak 25 in 2016 and 17, but for his career, he averaged between 17 and 18 homers a year, which I think at some point, Shawnuel can get to 15, 16 around there.
Yeah.
But I think he's around the same kind of RBIs though as Hosmer.
Yeah, Nolan Shanuel is a very smart hitter, and I definitely see an avenue where in a couple of years here we're talking about him being one of the better pure hitters in Major League Baseball. Mm-hmm. Because here's the thing: he's compared to Luis Arias a lot, but Luis Arias is a singles hitter. You're not going to really see his RBI unless he's placed in the proper place in a lineup and the guys in front behind him are getting on, because I think Luis Arias leads off a lot for the Padres. I don't watch too many Padres games, so forgive me if I'm wrong. I'm not a Padres expert, but he's on the upper end of their lineup a lot, if memory serves correctly. So that's
1 or 2.
Yeah. Typically he's pretty high up there. So you typically don't expect your number 1 and 2 guys to be major RBI machines. You expect them to drive a run here and there when obviously the lineup flips over. But I think Nolan Shanuel is a little bit more of a complete player than Luis Arias is. But when people talk contact wise, that's something that people say a lot. Even I made that comparison a couple times. But now that I've seen Nolan Chanuel get to mature a little bit more this year, I've liked what I've seen out of him a lot this year. I haven't given him the flowers he deserves. I like the player he's turning into, and I want him to continue to develop. And he will as he gets older. This is still a young cat. That's what a lot of people forget. But the point that I was trying to make is I feel like Perry hasn't hit a lot of these draft picks. Really that year that Sam Bachman was drafted, that was 2021. Not a lot of success has come so far out of any of those draft picks for the Angels. Chase Silseth and Sam Bachman by default are kind of the most notable names. And then obviously you got Neto, and then you have Shanuel. Ben Joyce is another guy, but we really haven't gotten to see him stay too healthy. So
Yeah, we've had a lot of injury problems with a lot of draft picks. That's what scares me about this draft, because damn, dude, I wish we kind of had a more experienced GM, or at least we scouted better. It's obvious we don't scout as good as we should. And again, I don't want to take the best available guy that everyone else is screaming about, because usually that's the wrong pick. I mean, look at Kumar, he hasn't really turned into a stud, and he was like everyone's saying, oh, he's hands down the best guy. That's the one dude where I'm happy the Angels didn't waste a draft pick on. But then again, look at how many other draft picks we wasted. So, and people, it's frustrating. People have hit in the 16th round. They'll hit a diamond in the rough, or they'll find somebody that fits their organization. And you're like, damn, where'd they get him from? Oh, that's right. They did their homework. And that's where I think the Angels are lacking. It's easy for them to look through a magazine like me and be like, oh, that guy's rated, 10th in the nation or 5th in the nation. Let's try to go after him. But do we know him? Do we know what he's capable of? Does he have the right stuff? Do we have to work on him? Is he a one pitch wonder like Ben Joyce in a way? Do we have to develop him more? I don't want to draft a project. With the franchise that we got, we have to draft guys that are as close to major league ready as possible, not to rush them through, but just to, say that we're going to put them in the minor league affiliate that we need to, and we know they're going to flourish and they're not going to spin their wheels down there.
Yeah, I always get so terrified when you draft pitchers early, because there's just so much potential for pitchers to bust when they're that early on. I mean, unless you literally got a guy like Paul Skeens, who just was a can't miss prospect. I mean, it was hard to imagine a guy like Paul Skeens not working out. And jury's still out if he works out long term. Just because he's hot right now and he's one of the best young pitchers doesn't mean he's going to be one of the best young pitchers long term, right? I mean, nowadays, is it possible to be a major league pitcher and not get Tommy John surgery? So jury's still out. I'm certainly not hoping that for Paul Skeens. He's one of my favorite players. But Liam Doyle is a name that a lot of people are linking with the Angels for the second overall pick. He's out of Tennessee. He's had a very, very good and very successful collegiate career. He's 21 years old. I mean, I'm not a major prospect guy. We always bring experts on for that. We'll ask Jared Tibbs to come on. We'll ask Taylor Blake Ward to come on. But Doyle's kind of the guy I'm seeing right now. But we have a little bit of time to talk draft, so we won't touch that one just yet.
Exactly. Well, besides that, and talking about the recent lack of success, you wanted to get into some other stuff involving the stuff that was announced earlier today.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the MLB All-Star Game jerseys and hats. We'll start off with the jerseys. I'll put them up on the screen right now.
There you go.
So anyone who's watching on the YouTube side here, you can go ahead and see it right there for yourself. I'm not crazy about it. I don't know how you feel, Todd. The hats I especially don't like. We'll show the Angels hat right now. Once again, on the YouTube side, that's the Angels hat. It's also the question of the day today, on the day you're listening to this podcast, where we're asking you guys for a letter grade. So, Todd, while I post the jerseys back up, how are you feeling?
I don't know. It's really weird with that patch over the top of the stars. I get what they're trying to do, but it doesn't fit in to me. If you're going to go American, whether not American National League, if that's what the Stars represent. I would actually do it one better, like sort of like how the college football teams, Ohio State has all those Buckeyes. Might as well just have 50 stars, make it Star Spangled Banner that way. But as far as the NLAL, can we just go back to wearing your, if you're on the road, it's in Atlanta, wear the Yankees gray, wear, just put an all-star patch on the side.
I think they started that this year. These are the workout home run derby jerseys.
Those don't look good to me. That looks just like, hey, you know what, we're going to sell some jerseys. Let's get it out there to the people that are collectibles. Because again, you wouldn't catch me buying one of these jerseys. I've never bought an all-star, even when the Angels hosted the all-star game here in Anaheim.
You've never bought one?
Nope. A lot of my friends went out and said, hey, let's get one of these jerseys, to represent the American League and also the Angels. I'm like, nope, don't want it, don't like it, don't need it. So.
I like All-Star Game jerseys a lot. So I have one from 2016 when it was in San Diego. I have a Trout, and I have a blank American League one. I have a 2010 Torrey Hunter, and then I have a blank American League one. So sometimes if you go to Rangers games out here and the Angels aren't playing, you'll see me just wearing that American League blank on the back, just as a cheap way to, hey, I'm just here to watch a baseball game. And then I have obviously the one from last year here in Arlington, but it's blank on the back. I like All-Star Game jerseys a lot. I have a lot of the Angels All-Star Game hats. I think the only one I've ever bought outright, like when it was, brand new, was in 2016 when I was at the All-Star Game, home run derby. But besides that, I always end up buying them when they go like on clearance.
I see. I've never done that, dude. I always like, the only ones I got, it's the retro ones. I got 3 1989 jerseys from the last time they had the All-Star Game, and with the All-Star patch. Okay. That's as far as I go, dude. I don't really like those warm-up jerseys. Just not a fan. Just not a fan of it, dude. I'm more old school, traditional. Like, I miss when everybody wore their jerseys, because to me, it's like that was when I would see the Angels in there where there was old school jerseys before the red. We didn't have too many Angels players, but when you got one of your guys in there, you're like, that's my guy right there. He's wearing our helmet. He's wearing our jersey. That was cool about the All-Star Game. I started to hate the All-Star Game when they started to just be like, oh, black jerseys or white jerseys or the color of that's infused in the color of the team hosting. It's like, I just never got into that. Never will.
Yeah. These are so bland. Like, Randy's our graphics guy, right? He puts a lot of detail and effort into his logos, videos, etc. But like, I legitimately feel like I could have made this. Like, there is nothing special here. It's literally a lowercase N and L for the National League, a lowercase AL. The AL jerseys look just like a Braves jersey. You know what I mean? Like, if I covered up the AL, you'd be like, oh, that's a Braves jersey. Like, you would just know. But the NL one, like, what are they doing? That does not look like anything, really. And funny enough, the Braves are in the NL, not the AL. So you think it'd be vice versa. I think the Braves jerseys would look, would be for the NL, but whatever. Yeah, these are an absolute miss, in my opinion. Honestly, some of the worst ones. Like, when I saw last year's in Arlington, like the khaki color and the salmon, I don't like them at first, but in person, they look a lot better than they do on TV. We've all been on a date with somebody, whether, guys and gals out there, and you feel like you maybe got a little catfish by your date. Some people, just don't photograph that well. Sometimes you go on a date and they look way better than they did in the photos, right? That's just how it is.
Rare.
Yeah. So, I've had some people tell me I look better than I in person than in photos. So I'll say this about the jerseys last year: they look a lot better in person than they show on media sources. Maybe that's the case with these, but I will say I'm not excited about these. Am I still potentially going to buy this Angels hat if it's on like super mega clearance? Like if it's like $25, that's normally when I buy them. So yeah, maybe. I don't like it on the side. It looks like this like breathable kind of, what would you call that? mesh almost.
Yeah, it's the mesh. I actually don't mind that as much. It's just I don't like
Really?
I don't like the divider with those 2 stars.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. The top, and then you have like the little, like just kind of bulky front there,
what
and
would
it's
see if I'm designing this, Fernando, I leave that all-star patch. I get rid of the mesh. I make it all solid material. I don't have that little bulky top thing. And what I do is I put the stars, and maybe inside the stars the abbreviations of the cities that all host baseball teams, and have like the American League stars on one side, the National League stars on the other side of that black top. You know what I mean? So that will be the divider going down the back of the hat. I think that would be a dope concept. But no, we got
yeah.
this.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's same thing with like this hat. You just super, super low energy. I don't know if you saw the 4th of July hats. Now those I like. I don't like that every team has like the baby blue. We don't have photos of that. But that was a question of the day. The only thing I didn't like was like the little rope. I've never been a fan of ropes on hats.
Yeah, it's not a
I've
good
had
look.
that take before. Yeah,
I gotta say this, Fernando. It's been a bad year for the MLB in creation. This year's outside look, a lot of people, and here's the thing: a lot of people like, and a lot of people dislike. There's like there's no in the middle with the White Sox new one. I do like the Bulls infusion. Some people hate it, but you've had like the Diamondbacks one makes no sense. The purple one.
Oh, I like it though.
You like, but see, it doesn't make any sense to me. And then
Because their jerseys used to be purple. Remember when they won the
Well,
World
yeah.
Series? They were like purple and like, I don't know what, teal and like gold almost.
Yeah, but it looked cool. They had the pinstripe look. That looks nothing like it. And then the Rockies one makes no sense.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
used to like the one with the Green Mountains. That was pretty sick.
yeah, it looked like a beer can. That's why I liked it so much. It looked cool. But yeah, this year's City Connects are bad. So that's why I'm hoping, next year's Angels one is pretty good. I'm kind of hoping that they do something like we've talked about several times. But even, I mean, this year they had the ass fiasco, the Texas. And so I mean,
Tetas.
the Tetas, there you go. And then the Angels hat. So you've had some really big F ups here with the with MLB and their merchandising. So this is another one where I don't like it. I'm with you. I don't like those jerseys, and the hats not passable in my opinion.
So people who have been long-time listeners of this podcast network know that I was an Arizona Coyotes fan. I guess I still am an Arizona Coyotes fan. They just don't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a lot of things that the organization did wrong. But one of the good things they were doing was the last couple years, I think the last like 2 or 3 years in existence, they used to bring actual like fashion designers, like younger, hip fashion designers to come and like do different concepts for jerseys and hats. And man, they were selling like hotcakes. Like these hats that they were doing were selling for like, 60, $70. And like, I don't mean like that's what they were listing for. I mean, like that's what they were selling them for.
Yeah.
Those Arizona Coyote jerseys, the ones that said like Arizona on them. I don't think I mean, I have one in my closet, but I have to dig for it. Those were selling like hotcakes. So like MLB should probably try to get with the times and, get designers who are, younger, who are going to appeal to the younger demographic, because that's who buys hats, right? It's people who are in, teenagers till about like 40, 50. You don't really see a lot of older folks, 60s, 70s wearing flat brim hats. They wear the dad hats.
Yeah, my dad's not clamoring for a hat right now. He's like, boy, I could really go for one of those 5950 hats.
Yeah. I don't think you're gonna see Papa Fox wearing an All-Star Game hat.
Not at all.
Yeah. Does he have any flat brim hats like these at all?
No.
Okay, because you and I are big fitted guys.
Oh yeah, I love fitted hats, but my dad, no way, dude. He has a weird shaped head anyway. But he does, man. So like I tried to get him some hats, and like he doesn't go outside of the snapback. That's for sure. And getting him to wear a hat because he's this looks weird on my head, like no matter what. So he goes without it.
That's fair. Yeah, I'm very particular about my hats. Like I don't typically like wearing hats indoors. Like I'll wear them if I haven't done my hair, or I just got out of the shower and I don't want to comb my hair again. I'll wear a hat, or if I'm like going outside, I'll wear one. But like inside, like at a store or whatever, or like when I'm eating, I can't wear a hat. It just makes me uncomfortable for whatever reasons. I'm very particular about my hats. But yeah, these are an absolute miss in my opinion. Wish I could have done a little bit better, but whatever. That's a topic. We have a couple more weeks to talk about this.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I guess if that's it, I mean, we'll just hope for the best with our Halos as they're going to be taking on the second leg right now, currently in New York of that road trip before they come back home and play some more divisional games. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't forget to thank our sponsors. 714 Tickets. Use code HITI, HITI at checkout for 10% off, 5% back in future purchases. For rewards, you can use that. And that HITI code, folks, is good as many times as you want it. Use it for other events besides just Angels games. Literally, if you're going to any event, check 714 Tickets first. Use our code. You can thank us later. Go to Bruheim, mention Halos in the infield. If they're not giving you that discount, you make sure you let us know. That's the only way that we're able to let them know about it as well. OC Degout for all memorabilia and Max Market Pros. If you are looking to grow your social media presence, maybe get your small business a website, make sure you hit them up for all of those needs. Give us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, and let us know what you want to see us talk about next. Any hot takes you guys have coming up. And that's all I got.
That's all I got as well. So for Todd Fox,
And the Lone Star Halo.
see you next time.